Greetings and welcome. Today we're going to work on another character build for the Daggerheart Open Beta 1.3. Today we're going to be working on a Druid. Now I messed around with Druids and I tried some healing builds, some support builds, and at the end of the day I'm finding in Daggerheart that even if you build a character that does have healing and support, it's best to just build that character to also do damage in most cases. So we're going to build a damage dealing Druid. It's still going to be able to help the party out in many different ways. Our goals are going to be to use the Warden of Renewal subclass. We're going to have animal forms, of course, being a Druid. We'll be able to scout, track to gain info. We're going to want to forge a bond with another melee combatant. Now this can be, maybe you have a friend that's playing the game with you and you agree from the start to build your characters together and kind of have that bond from the start. Maybe you're related in some way or have known each other for a long time. Or maybe once you join a game, you just figure out which melee damage dealer or tank that you want to pair up with. But this class is really going to shine when we're standing beside somebody else who wants to be in melee. The build is really going to come online with multiclass to warrior at level 5. I'm going to get some interesting things out of that, so we'll take a look at that. And then higher levels from 5, we're just going to be adding more damage, and of course the Druid's going to develop a lot more utility. So any level 1, any one-shots of any level, this character is going to be fun, but I think it'll be the most fun at level 5 and higher. So for Ancestry, we're going to pick an Orc here. And this is a character that we're going to eventually, we're not going to mind if we take damage. We don't mean to be the party's main tank in certain boss fights, but we're certainly not afraid to take a hit, and there's a good reason for that. So we're going to play an Orc, and we're going to constantly invest in the major threshold. So all 10 levels, when we level up, we're always just going to increase our major threshold and make it so that when we do take damage, we'll only take 1 hit point of damage in most cases. For community, if we're working on our thresholds, it makes sense to grab Ridgeborn since we're working on thresholds. Also makes sense for an Orc to be born somewhere in the mountains, so this seems pretty straightforward. So we're going to call this character Zav. There's a reason we're going to name it Zav. We'll find out what that is later. So the personality. We've got this Orc who grew up in a mountain village, but really is one of these head in the clouds type kids, right? So he's constantly walking around daydreaming, thinking about other stuff, not really paying attention. And then one day he sees this fake creature who's like spying on the village on the outskirts and scares it away and then decides to run after it. And, just doesn't pay any attention to where he's going or what he's doing. It's fun, it's exciting, and he's off on an adventure. Finds himself to be completely lost. So now we got an Orc that came down off the mountain. And, he decides to have a little adventure and finds out that he's got something in common with the land. He has no problems living off the land for the next few days. And, says, okay, well, let's just be on a little adventure. Just kind of forgets all about his parents and everything, right? Finally catches up with this fake creature. It's some kind of crazy-looking girl with spider features, right? So she's getting into all kinds of mischief, and they start to get up to mischief together. And he just sort of stays. And now he's living in the woods at the bottom of this mountain and living with a Fae family and really stops being an Orc. It's, it's an odd backstory, but this is actually a set of characters that my daughter and I might play together. And so this is my daughter's imagination at work, and this is how we're going to end up meeting in our backstory. So it's kind of a crazy thing, but yeah, so we're going to potentially play these two characters together in a game. So he basically ends up living with these fairy folks in the woods, becomes a Druid. So now we've got an Orc that's a Druid that's originally from the mountain. And we're going to have this inside joke where we refer to each other as twins. So even though we're going to be completely different races, not look anything like one another, one's an Orc and one's a spider-looking lady, yeah, sure, why not be twins? And obviously it won't be true, but we will say it with conviction and try to have some fun with it. So yeah, this is it's an interesting little concept. So we're going to take a Druid as our main class. It gives you Druid craft and gives you this ability to spend a stress and go into beast form. The beasts are pretty good. They're reasonably well designed, I think. I don't see anything that makes them seem too powerful or not powerful enough. So I think it's good to have the alternate forms. The higher level ones have interesting little abilities. Overall, though, I even as much as I tried to make a build that was specifically around the beast form, it does say that while you're in beast form, you can't take advantage of items, armor, or domain cards. So it's not really clear what they mean where it says you can't use domain cards. For example, if you have Thornskin on and it's activated, it allows you to reduce damage by taking tokens off the card. So if you go into beast form, if that's already activated, do you have access to it? Or do your domain cards just become blank and you're an animal? And that's it. And you can't use any of your abilities. I don't think that's very clear from the way the text is written. I'd be interested. Leave it in the comments down below. You guys all tell me how you're ruling this with a druid. What we're going to do is basically, if the effect is already up and running, like let's say summon familiar, and you've summoned a familiar, and you turn into an animal form, the familiar stays around. It's not going to go away. And the damage advantage that you get from that familiar is going to stick around. But if you would have to check a card while you're in animal form, then it's not going to work. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to cast a spell or do something like that while you're in animal form, it's just not going to work. So that's how we're doing it. If it's already in place, you get it, but while you're in animal form, you don't get any of it. Whether it's active or passive, you can't, check your domain cards once you're an animal, which limits trying to build around the beast forms becomes limited then, because it's just basically the animal and its attack and its ability without being able to sort of soup it up with domain stuff. Subclass, we're going to take Warden of Renewal. It does have a stress clearing effect. You can clear up to your instinct value in stress before a rest. I assume most people will be doing it before a rest. But it's especially at first when your instinct score is pretty low, removing 2 stress across the whole party, it's not that good. But later on, when you get to 5, or if you get a relic, up to 6, when you get higher stats, it starts to help, I think, quite a lot, and it'll allow characters to go in and out of rest with a good amount of stress clearing. So it's nice. I looked at the elemental forms, and really the extra stress that you would spend on those forms is obscene. So you have to spend stress to be in your elemental form. Then if you wanted to be in an animal form on top of that, it's another stress. The elemental forms by themselves don't seem good enough. Water elemental seems really good, but then to trigger its good abilities, you need more stress. So I wasn't impressed with that. I think it's too resource heavy. You could do some really cool things, but you can only do them once or twice per rest. So it's in the end, I think renewal is just better. Stats, we'll take the +2 to the insight. We'll take strength and agility and a -1 in knowledge. We'll let somebody else do the knowledge stuff. Weapons, we're going to take a short staff as the primary, and we're actually going to take a grappler as our secondary weapon. And sometimes if you're playing with a friend who's a melee character, trying to move around and get where you need to be isn't always easy. If somebody just can bring the monsters to you, that's pretty cool, right? So if we're working together with another melee character, and especially if it's a warrior, if we can pull stuff into melee combat with them, then they lock it down with their attack of opportunity, getting free damage or stopping its movement if it tries to walk away. So I think the grappler is just a gimmick. It's not meant for you to run into combat and be using the grappler as your main thing. But if you guys are in combat and you're in melee with your partner, and one of the characters in the back row gets attacked, and you just want to pull that enemy away from them, you can do that. You can go ahead and grab them and pull the enemy out of that and into combat with you. And again, we're building this character so we don't mind taking a hit. As far as armor goes, I don't see any reason not to use full plate. Again, it says your armor, you can't use your armor while you're in the beast form. So there are some negatives to full plate mail. You lose evasion, you lose agility, but if you're in animal form, my understanding is the armor card is basically blank. I don't take that to mean you still take the penalties of the armor and also can't use the advantages of the armor. If that's the case, if that's how your GM rules it, then you'll want leather armor because you don't want anything in the way of the bonuses and skills and everything that you get in your beast forms. But as far as I'm concerned, like when you turn into a beast, you just, whatever your armor is, you don't have anything. It's 0. So the penalties are gone as well as the bonuses. And we actually don't mind the penalties. Again, we want to get hit later on in this build. We don't mind taking a hit point of damage. So the full plate armor is good. It'll allow us to mitigate damage when we need to keep it in that 1 hit point range. And again, we're going to always work on our major threshold. The major threshold is going to be pushed up so that we can, pretty much most damage is going to fall into that 1 hit point range. Starting inventory, you can pick whatever you like for this build. For domain cards, we're going to start out with Gifted Tracker. I just like that card for roleplay out of combat, tracking things, trying to find out some information I think is really good. It also gives the side benefit of giving you a little extra evasion if you get in combat with something you've tracked, so that's not bad either. I like Rune Ward. There's other domain cards here that are good. You can pick your favorites. Rune Ward, I think it feels to me like it's something you would put on your ally, especially if your ally didn't have a great place to just dump hope right away in the start of the game. So that would give them a way to reduce damage using hope. I don't think that's a card we're going to keep around later on in the levels. Once we start getting better cards, that'll go away pretty quickly. But it's just a way to mitigate damage, trade off hope against damage in the early game. With the reduction in armor overall in 1.3, this domain card did get a little bit better. The D8 previously, I mean, if you roll a 4 or 5 on average, it's only equal to, let's say, a breastplate armor with 1 armor slot marked. But now that everything's dropped off, it's it's like plate mail. It's like an extra plate mail for spending a hope. So it's not too bad. Not too bad. We'll take a look at that. Experiences, we took one called In Touch with the Source, just kind of nature things. So I thought that it encapsulated a whole lot of stuff. I'm doing this well because I'm in touch with the source. Whatever the source is, the force, the Gaia, whatever you want to call it. And then for the other skill, I put experience. I put fascination with burrowing animals because it's funny. I don't know. Again, this is a head in the clouds kind of character, like to get distracted by shiny things, lover of shiny objects, whatever. I take some of these experiences sometimes and I think just role-playing stuff is okay. We're going to take other experiences later that we won't mind leveling up, but this one will just be a little bit silly with it. Level 1 gameplay. So at level 1, we're going to enter combat together with our partner. We're going to use the grappler if it's a great move. We don't have a great bonus to our finesse. Grappler uses finesse, so it's kind of like, if it's a great move, we'll do it. Otherwise, we're just going to attack at range. Wait for things to get into melee. Once engaged in melee, the pack predator is really good. So we're going to take our turn right after our melee friend, right? So we're going to stand next to the tank. They're going to go. And then if you go and attack something immediately after your partner has attacked it, you get an extra D8. It's the equivalent of having 2 proficiency at level 1, which is really good for low level. It's a really good way to do damage. So we're going to be able to do 2d8. And with the stat bonuses that we get to strength, and we've got decent strength already, we should hit pretty reliably. So stick around with our partner. Basically be a wolf or whatever kind of pack animal you think would be fun. The pack predator does have pretty good armor. It's not bad. Decent thresholds. And we're not afraid to be a target. If we get targeted instead of our partner, we don't care. Both characters are meant to be, in the case that I'm working on for me and my daughter, we're both going to be skirmishers. We're going to take damage when we need to, do a lot of damage, and basically stay out in front of the party. I do think at level 1, think about your animal forms. You could be a mouse or a spider or some small animal that scouts around. You can also be this pack predator. So in my case, here's a wolf, and the wolf retains some of its orcish look. So it's going to be a wolf, but it's going to have green fur, and yeah, so I'll still have some orcish traits. Maybe have a little bit of chainmail armor on my shoulders or something like that, where it's kind of a combination of a animal with a little bit of my orc still visible through it. So you could be 3 or 4 different kind of pack predators. One time you could be a wolf. The next time you could be, some kind of small feral cat of some kind. I mean, you could do whatever you want with this. Have a little fun with it. Be a fun pack predator. Out of combat, you can track monsters. You can use instinct to help in social encounters. You got good instinct on this character. Scouting around as a mouse could be fun. You do get to remove that stress before rests. You can spend hope to heal your team. And basically, if your partner has a couple hit points of damage, going into a rest, if you've got hope, you can spend the hope and heal them of their damage. Then when they rest, they can clear armor slots and clear stress, or they could clear stress and gain a hope. There's a bunch of different stuff that you could do. The flexibility increases by quite a bit if you can, take away or heal up the hit points before they have to rest. So that's nice. Levels 2 through 4, we're going to take an experience called Healing Hands. And so we'll have an experience that's going to allow us to do something with healing. I don't know where it'll be relevant, but we'll just call it that. For level 2, we're going to take proficiency in traits. That's typically always what we're going to take at level 2 for sure. And we're going to level up our instincts and our strength. We're going to take the natural familiar. If we're in combat with the natural familiar, it's going to give us an extra d6 of damage. So now we're in melee with our friend and also with our familiar. If we attack right after our buddy, we're going to do 3d8 plus d6 damage. And that's really a lot of damage for level 2. That's good average damage. Among the best damage dealers, it won't be any problem to do your fair share. At level 3, we're going to level up the experiences that In Touch with the Source and the Healing Hands we're going to level up. And we're going to take another stress slot. We'll take Counterspell. That's something we might want later on if we're dealing with magic users. Again, if we track a magic user and we know there's one, then we can pull out the Counterspells. At this level, we're spending a lot of time in our animal forms, beast forms anyway, so we won't be able to use the Counterspell very much in combat. At level 4, we're going to level up some more traits. We're going to get agility and finesse. We'll eventually get animal forms that need agility or finesse as main stats, so we're going to try to keep those stats up. And then we'll take a bump to our major threshold. Again, we're just constantly going to keep working on pushing that up. And then for domain cards, we're going to take Death Grip, and Death Grip's going to be our signature move. And this card it's going to be reworded. I have to imagine it's going to be reworded. The way it's worded right now is broken in several different ways. So first of all, it has no range. It just says target, right? You can either pull yourself, you make a spellcast roll, and then you can restrain the target and pull it to you into melee, or you can pull yourself to it in melee. So you could look at a castle that's 100 yards away at somebody who's at the top of the wall. And theoretically, with this spell, the way it's written right now, you just shoot a vine and you go to them. Or you shoot a vine and you bring them to you. I imagine this card eventually has to have a range. I feel like it would be far range. I don't know if it would be very far. If it's very far, being able to teleport yourself very far across the battlefield, cast the vine, move into combat with that character, that is a spell, a restrained, a movement, all as part of the same action, which feels way too powerful to me. But as it's written right now, that's how it works. And, let's say, for instance, that it is far range. Still, it's fantastic. And this is going to be something that we're going to use for the rest of our career. So in combat, in the first 3 levels, we're going to be using this Pack Predator a lot. Stick with the partner, attack after they do. It says on Pack Predator to do an additional D8 of damage. And the way it was originally worded was if it said a specific number of dice, it was that number. And if it didn't, if it just said like D8, it was subject to proficiency. But if this animal form, this beast form is subject to proficiency, It's ridiculous. I mean, eventually, at the end of the game, when you have 6 proficiency and you're attacking for 6d8, if you can attack after an ally and do 12d8, that's unreasonable. So I think this has to be 1d8 additional damage that you get. That's good enough. It's good at low levels, and it doesn't scale that well into high levels. If somebody clarifies and says, no, this really is a proficiency-based skill, well, then this could potentially be one of the most powerful abilities in the entire game. Doubling your proficiency just for taking the right order in which you attack is ridiculously good. Okay, so I don't believe that it's proficiency in Pack Predator, but ask your GM and play it however he wants to for your table. Use Hope for that familiar. The familiar disappears if it takes damage, but a way to think about it is, you're going to be spending Hope to heal people's hit points anyway, and if in combat they target this familiar instead of a real character and do damage to your familiar, that's already some kind of victory, right? Because that's somebody in your party that's not taking that damage. Unless it gets caught in an area effect and just, dies for nothing that way, which would be a shame. But, so the familiar helps you do more damage, so keep that out when you can. At level 4 with Death Grip, that's where you become the Scorpion character. And for anybody who's ever played Mortal Kombat, you know what that means. And for people who haven't played Mortal Kombat, there's a character in there named Scorpion. And one of his moves is he throws this, basically a chain with a hook on it, spears you with it. I don't think it's a hook. I think it might be more like a harpoon. So he harpoons you, yanks you over to him, and then gives you a big uppercut or some kind of move that does tons of damage. So it's pretty cool. He yells, "Get over here," whenever he does. So if you want to do that with this character and yell, "Get over here," when you death grip something, yeah, you could do that. It's also a bit like, I think World of Warcraft, the Death Knights have a similar thing where they can death grip somebody over to them. So anyway, it's a very, very flavorful storytelling thing. At least in my mind, man, when you do this move, it's really an opportunity for some cool descriptions. We're going to be spending more time in Orc form after level 4. There's no range on Death Grip and no save. So that pulling thing, they don't get a strength save to stop from being pulled. You don't have to make, as long as you make your spellcasting roll, it just happens. And they're restrained, and there's no save against the restrained. So all in all, it seems really good. And now we're going to spend more time in our caster form because we're going to want to pull in enemies. And again, remember, our melee partner is level 4. It's going to be a warrior, or it could be a seraph, it could be a guardian, it could be anything. But especially with a warrior, we can position ourselves at such an angle with the warrior always that whenever we pull something into melee with us, that it will also be in melee with our warrior friend, and that means it can't get away. If it gets away or tries to leave, it's going to be subject to attack of opportunity from the warrior. So basically, we're going to be using Death Grip, yanking stuff into combat with our warrior friend, and they don't have to worry about moving around the field too much because they can just sit there and buzzsaw through everything that gets pulled in close. Again, I'm playing this with my daughter, and it's an easy way for her to not have so many battlefield decisions to make. I'll just move the stuff to her, and she can give it the beat down with a really big hammer or something. All right. You can also teleport to an enemy, and in some cases where you might have a caster or something like that you want to get on top of instead of bringing them to you, there could be certain circumstances where getting to the caster is more relevant than bringing it to you. So you could also take yourself into melee combat with them, change into your bear form and tank, or whatever you need to do. Now, the last thing, in the game, there are domain cards that are worded very clearly that say target adversary this. When you target an adversary, something happens. This one says target. In theory, you could target a party member with it. You're up front attacking a couple ogres, and come to find out there's 2 more ogres behind you that run in and ambush your sorcerer in the back. In theory, you could use Death Grip, grab your sorcerer, and pull it to you. Now, it would cause that character to be restrained. You can't get around that mechanic, but yeah, I mean, maybe being restrained is better than being killed by a couple ogres in the background. So, I don't know. Maybe you could even use it as a life grip. Who knows? Again, if your GM rules it that way, I think the card will be changed. You know, have a range, be specific that it targets adversaries, and probably at some point they get to make a reaction roll to avoid being pulled somewhere. Otherwise, it seems like it's a bit too good. All right, so we're going to combine pulling an enemy into melee and then using Pack Predator. It does say mark a stress and transform. It does not say that it takes an action to do so. So it doesn't take an action, doesn't put an action on the token tracker, on the tracker, for example. So we should be able to use this spell, pull something to us, and then transform into an animal all within the same turn before we give it over to another player. So we can transform into a brutish beast if we need to tank, Pack Predator if we need to attack, or just stay in our normal orc form if we want to do that. Out of combat, same kind of stuff. We've got the little mouse form for tracking or for scouting. We've got the tracking abilities. We still have stress removal and healing with the Warden of Renewal, so some support for the party. Level 5. Now here's the big level, and we're going to talk about level 5 for a while, and then we'll go into the rest of the tier. 5 through 7 I usually put as one tier, but in this character, level 5 is really something that needs some time for discussion. We'll take another experience. I called it Whisper Walker, so maybe if you're trying to be stealthy, this helps. We're going to multi-class into Warrior. Now, normally at level 5, we're going to take a proficiency and stat bonuses, but here, the multi-classing into Warrior is really the core of what we want to hit with this class, and we want it as soon as possible. So we're going to multi-class. We're going to take Call of the Brave, and we're going to take the Blade Domain, and we're going to take Retaliation as a domain card. And now everything comes together, and now we're truly Scorpion, right? Use the Death Grip. Pull them to you. Now remember, this is not in beast form. We're not able to do this in beast form. We do the Death Grip. We pull something to us. We're a warrior now. With the new rules, we're fully a warrior. We get the ability to ignore burden with a weapon that we're wielding, so we can wield a big weapon in our hand. We can wield something in our offhand that's going to give us a bonus to our main hand damage. We're going to pull something into melee combat with us, and it's going to be restrained. If it breaks the restraint and tries to leave, we're going to have an attack of opportunity to either stop it or do damage. Most likely that character, once it gets pulled into combat with us and restrained and facing an attack of opportunity, it's just going to hit us. When it hits us, if it does 1 hit point of damage, we're basically building our character so that we can take 1 hit point of damage. Our major threshold is going to be really high. So when we get hit, we're going to be between our minor and major, which means 1 hit point of damage. And as long as we take damage, that triggers Retaliate. When you take damage, you get to hit back at half proficiency and deal weapon damage. Now, weapon damage does include the stat bonuses, and we're at 2 proficiency right now. So what will happen, we'll get 1d12 plus half our proficiency. At level 5, if we just take the improved version of weapons, an improved Warhammer has +6. It's d12 plus 6. An improved small dagger gives +3 to our main hand damage, and Warrior gives a hit point of damage for every level of our character. In multi-classing, I don't see anything that says you have to be, per level of this class. Warrior just says per level. So at level 5, you're hitting for a d12 plus 14. That's going to average 21 damage. There might be another d6 in there. You've got your summoned familiar from the level 2 domain that you might have. So you could have 21 to 25 damage very easily on your retaliation hit. Now, mark a stress to make the attack, hit for that big damage. And I can't oversell this enough. It's crazy. When you're not even on your turn. You're on the enemy's turn. You're doing damage. It costs you 1 stress to activate it, but it's no token. It's no roll. You're not getting, you're not putting an action on the action tracker. It's really good. So, Scorpion, Death Grip, bring them over. End your turn. They attack you. They do damage, retaliate. Mark a stress, deal damage back, 2 or 3 hit points, kill things super fast when it's not even your turn. All right, level 6 and 7. We'll take proficiency and traits at level 6. And we'll take Forager. It allows you a different downtime action. It says, as an additional downtime action, you can forage, and it gives you a list of things that you can find. It's not crystal clear. I believe what it means to say is you get another option that you can take during downtimes, another optional action to forage. But at least one other player that I've talked to interprets it as you get an additional downtime action. So as an additional downtime action, that means it's a third downtime action. I think that might make it a little too good for a level 6 ability. So what we talked about is kind of on a short rest, it would be an option. And on a long rest, you would just get to forage. It is a level 6 card after all. And you have to have it in your loadout or spend the stress to bring it into your loadout before a rest to use it. So it's, I don't know. Leave it in the comments down below. You guys tell me how you're ruling it. But I think it's a nice compromise to say on a short rest, it's an option that you can pick. On a long rest, it's just something you get. And that makes the card worth it. Level 7, we're going to get another proficiency. We'll go up to level 4 proficiency now. And we'll keep going with the agility and the finesse and try to keep it up so that when we're in bat form or an agility animal form that we can still have good stats there. So in combat, we're constantly going to be trading in stress for hit with retaliation. That's going to be better in most cases than going into beast form. Pack Predator is still good, but Pack Predator can't do free damage. And again, with my interpretation of how the beast forms work, once you're in beast form, you can't use retaliation. If you could, that'd be pretty cool. Death Grip something in, turn into an animal. When it attacks you, you can attack back with bonuses, all that stuff. But I really think that the domain cards are off the list when you're in animal form, so that means that that we can't do that. We can grip enemies in when needed. We could turn into a speedy beast. And remember, if you're a speedy beast, the partner can ride you. So again, if you're playing with a friend, you could be already in speedy beast form before you ever enter combat. You're just riding through the woods. You are the beast and somebody's on top of you. And then when you run into combat, the Speedy Beast allows you to move up to, I think, very far distance with no agility roll. And then if you moved a certain distance before you did damage, you can do extra damage. So basically, if you're in a wide open space, you can run around as a Speedy Beast with your buddy on your back, constantly putting them in combat. And remember, once you and the warrior get into combat with something, again, you both have attacks of opportunity now, so anything that wants to walk away from you is going to get severely punished. One person could do damage, one person can decide to just stop it from moving. It's pretty crazy. And the Speedy Beast is really a good form. It gives +4 evasion, has an armor of 7, tons of movement. It's really a fantastic form to be in when you want to partner up. There's still plenty of times when you're going to want to just be in your Druid form, using your stress for retaliation for free damage. But yeah, if it helps your partner, be the Speedy Beast. Okay, out of combat, we still have healing, scouting, removing stress. We can start the day with 3 hope for us and an ally. I didn't go over that, but I think I forgot to mention. We're going to take Soldier's Bond at level 7. And that says once per long rest, you can give 3 hope to yourself and another player. So basically, you use it once, and then you can swap out with something else in your loadout and not look at that card again until you wake up the next morning. But preloading with 3 hope for 2 characters, giving 6 hope just for the cost of a card is really good. So that's a nice way to charge up yourself and your ally. You also have a great winged beast form. You can carry up to 2 people. And in D&D, flight is silly, and you can do some really, really powerful stuff with flight. You could do it here too. There's no reason why you can't be flying above the battlefield. And if people on your back have bows or magic weapons that have a range of very far, you can be very far above the ground. And if the things down there don't have a way to get up to you, you just fly around and the people on your back win the combat without ever being in danger. It's pretty dumb. But yeah, so there's some gimmicks that you could use here. I think D&D players know how broken flight can be. So let's take a quick look at retaliation. We still got levels 8 through 10 to specify, but I just want to show you how good this retaliation can be. Remember, it's half your proficiency, right? So at level 5, we can retaliate for 2d12 plus 4, or a d12 plus 14, and then the plus 6 if we got a familiar. At level 6, once we get our proficiency up to 3, now it's 2d12 plus 15, 31.5 average damage. We only get basically a boost of 1 going to level 7 for warrior. At level 8, we get another proficiency, and now we're at 5 proficiency, so it's 3d12 plus 21 if you have advanced weapons. And then by level 10, if you get legendary weapons, it's 3d12 plus 27 for 47 damage. And you can still swing the hammer on your turn. Once you death grip something in next to you, you can retaliate, hit them like this. And then on the next turn, you can hit them with the hammer and do a full 6d12 plus 27 damage, which is going to put you at about 67 damage. So your damage output is, again, against a single target, it's among the best in the game. Do as much or more damage than any other damage dealing character. So for this reason, I think you spend a lot of time in your just natural orc form, death gripping stuff in and sealing its fate. Level 8 experience, we'll call it Storm Chaser. Again, just a role play kind of thing. Head in the clouds, whatever, something shiny, whatever you want to do. Level 8, we're going to level up that proficiency and traits again. We're going to take Arcane Reflection. Again, if we know that it's a mage, we can put things like Arcane Reflection and Counterspell. We have to stay in our Druid form to use that stuff, though, so just, you know, that there's more and more reason as we level up to stay in our Druid form most of the time. Level 9, we're going to go ahead and take proficiencies and keep the Agility and Finesse. Then we're going to take Earthquake. Earthquake makes things vulnerable. It's a nice thing to prep if you got a big group of enemies. You do an Earthquake and you make them all vulnerable. And that could help your party quite a lot. Everybody gets advantage against vulnerable targets, so that's a lot of double rolls on hope and a lot less chances of getting fear without having to use the help action to generate. So Earthquake's a nice setup for the rest of your team. And then at level 10, we're going to level up those experiences, take another bump to our major threshold. You could take major threshold twice here because we didn't take it in the middle tier, and I do believe it allows you to do 2 upgrades at the top level here. I'm not 100% sure, but at least it allows me to do it in the tool, so I think you can do it. And then for level 10, we're going to take Tempest, again, the Hurricane. You pick a direction and creatures can't move against the direction. With our build now, it's getting really silly. We create a Tempest, we create a wall of wind that's keeping things away in that direction, and then we can death grip them in one by one when we want to bring them into the meat grinder. So some pretty cool stuff we can do with this Druid by level 10. Really, so many options. We can hover over the battlefield with the mighty flying beast. We can grip things. We can also go to enemies across the battlefield. You can also set up an interesting trample mechanic with the behemoth. At level 9, you get a form that lets you trample across the battlefield in a line and do damage to everything that you run over. So if things happen to be lined up where it's great for a trample, you just wait and wait and wait, and when everybody's taken their turn, you can go last in one round. Again, assuming that with the update to 1.3, a lot of people are going to play it so that everybody takes a turn before it passes to the next turn. I think, from what I've heard, most people are doing that now. You wait until the end of the turn, then you death grip yourself to an enemy, and then at the top of the next round, you take another turn, second consecutive turn, and you turn into your beast form, and you just trample in a big line, and you run everybody over. So there's some death grip is just it's so insane. I don't know why. You can build a whole character. I've built the whole character around death grip, and it seems like it's going to be really super fun. We can mostly just tank, retaliate, pull things in. Again, we've got a friend who's also a warrior, so if they attack that warrior instead, there's going to be consequences. So lots of different stuff we can do in combat. We can also heal people. I mean, if it gets right down to it, the ability to spend hope and heal, it can be done as an action in combat. It's not a strictly out of combat skill, at least the way I read it. So gameplay 8 to 10 out of combat. We've got scouting, tracking, stress relief, healing, foraging. We've got all kinds of things to help support the party. We've got the Bat Cat taxi service. My daughter's big into cats, so I think my flying beast form might be a cat with wings. I don't know if anybody's so specific about this that it actually has to be a natural form, so I have to be a bat or something like that. But in a game of imagination, why can't we be a cat with bat wings? Why not? It'll be the Bat Cat taxi service. And then we'll have the Behemoth freight management. And Behemoth can carry, I think, up to 4 people. So you can be in that form and just have like a big mahout on your back. And is that the right word? I think I don't. Maybe that's the person who steers the elephant. I don't know. But your whole party can be on your back, basically. If you've got 4 other people in the party, they can all be riding up there, and you can just be charging around the battlefield. So, again, there's some crazy tactics that you can explore with this character. So, yeah, the whole idea is to pull an enemy to you, restrain it, pin it down with attack of opportunity from you, maybe potentially your ally as well. The final thresholds in this character, the way I built it, was 1/2843. Having a 28 major threshold, most damage falls in there. We're using heavy armor. We can upgrade our heavy armor as we level up. So if we get hit for, 42 hit points of damage or something like that, that's up by the major threshold, we probably just take two hit points of damage for that. But, if it's somewhere in between, we could probably knock it down below that 28, use our armor for that. 43 is pretty high for the severe threshold. There are some monsters that might do that to us, but I think with some uses of our armor, we're pretty safe. So again, we're going to trade off what we're trying to do. We're not trying to evade. We have decent evasion in animal forms, but with our armor, we'll lose some of that. If we do get hit, we take a hit point, we retaliate, we mark a stress to get free damage. That's what we're doing. The animal forms to overcome terrain. Behemoth form can't be restrained, so weird as it sounds, if you're underwater and a kraken has you grappled and you're restrained and drowning and dying, you can actually be a behemoth and just swim to the surface. It's weird. There's a lot of things you can do here, but it's a ton of fun. I will say that this character, I really couldn't find the bandwidth to add stress. If you wanted to trade off some of that threshold improvement for stress improvement, you could do that. I think that just increasing the threshold, leveling that ability up when you can in each tier, plus you get up to plus 10 from being an orc. So I feel like you just go all in on the thresholds, which leaves you with I think only 7 stress. And changing to animal form is a stress, using retaliation is a stress. So I feel like this character, if you don't pay attention and you just, do everything you can, whenever you can, you'll be stressed out in a hurry. But yeah, it seems like a super fun, versatile character. I think it's fun from level 1. There's being a pack beast for those first, or pack predator for those first 3 levels, then getting your death grip and starting to yank things over to you. At level 5, when you get that warrior multiclass, that's when things just go off the rails, and I think this character gets pretty ridiculously fun. Okay, that's going to wrap up the build. I'm sure you guys can continue to optimize this and find better ways to use domain cards or other things. So put those in the comments down below. Happy to hear from you, the community. Hope you like this build. Please remember to hit that like button on the way out if you didn't hit it on the way in. It will help this channel grow, and I would appreciate it if you could do that for me. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. Use the notification bell. I don't know if I'm going to be doing live streams on this, but if I ever do, that'll tell you when I'm actually doing live streams. So hope to see you in the next video.